Good evening, everybody. I'd like to tell you in a few minutes what to do and what not to do with oxygen when flying high altitude and wave. This work has been made by me, Dr. Schaffner, and the High School of Engineering of Winterthur and the Swiss Army. So these results are in my book, Dancing with the Wind, and many other things to do. So first of all, hypoxia is not like a car running on fuel. It may damage the machine. You may get a blood clotting very easily, thrombosis, pulmonary embolism, I had one, stroke. And remember that hypoxia and stress and smoking and dehydration and anti-baby pill is the worst possible combination. The right heart also can be damaged with a pulmonary vasoconstriction, hypertension, pulmonary edema with inflammatory reaction. This happens quite often. Your nerve system, brain can be damaged with cell membrane hyperfluidization, brain swelling, nerve and brain edema. Kidneys and adrenal glands can also be damaged with arterial hypertension, I have one, kidney diseases, APO release. Hypertension can also happen, cerebral and retinal, I had one, retinal. And last but not least, we just found that there is an increased risk of Alzheimer's disease. So enjoy now and pay later? No, zero tolerance. This must be your rule, zero tolerance on hypoxia. So let's see how the EDS is working. This is a typical cycle of breath, 20 breaths per minute. That means 3 seconds from here to here. In the first half of the first second, so in this part, 500 milliseconds, the oxygen which goes into your lung go really to the alveoli and are really used by your body. All the rest is completely wasted. This part, the second part of the breath, is lost because the oxygen does not reach the alveoli, but it stays in the dead volume, the dead space in your mouth or in the tubes. In these parts, you are just expiring, so it's just completely lost. So if you look at what happens here, this is a constant flow system, so most of the oxygen is lost. If you look at the EDS, how it works, you have a small pulse at a flow of 15 liters per minute, which lasts maximum 500 milliseconds. When the EDS is on manual position, RM, it opens here and closes here. You cannot put more oxygen in your lungs, but putting more oxygen in your mouth. It's very clear. This is the maximum you can get. So remember, the EDS is working only half a millisecond maximum time. We also measured the flow of oxygen, that means the volume of oxygen which is given in time in all the positions of the EDS O2D1. It's not the last one, it's the one 5-10 years ago. But anyway, it is the same principle. So in blue you have the end position, which is the normal position you start with, and then you increase with 5, 10, 15 and 20, and this is the RM, that means reserve manual position. As you can see, the manual position is always giving the same flow of oxygen from the ground to any altitude. But what is important to remember, to find here, is that the maximum altitude you can get is 6,000 meters. After 6,000 meters, you have no more oxygen. and you need to put the oxygen in F20 or F15 to get the maximum flow. If you don't do that, you will be here. So you will not have enough oxygen at 6,000 meters. So the position N, which is what they call normal, is to be forgotten. Just forget. Let's see now what happens in flight. We have made an experimentation with the help of the Swiss Army. We took 6 glider pilots in a PC-6 to 6,000 meters by steps of 1,000 meters. And we were adapting the settings of the EDS to maintain 90% minimum SPO2. SPO2 means peripheral saturation. This is the one you measure on your finger. It's not the one you have in your brain. Take care. Of course, we made laboratory experimentation before, but it's not sufficient because in flight you are cold, there are vibrations, you have to do some things. So we took the PC-6 and we took 6 glider pilots in different conditions, young ones, old ones, smokers, non-smoker. The curve I will show you now is the one of a male, 69, so it's not so old, non-smoker with a body mass index of 26.3, which is quite good, 1.72 meter high and 78 kilo. The measurements were made with a recording pulse oximeter that I strongly recommend that you use. I do not recommend to use the low-cost digital pulse oximeter for many reasons, but mainly first because you need to protect your finger against light. So you have this, it must be protected against cold, so you need a glove, and then you can replay your flight after the flight and see what happened. Why did I do this mistake? And then you know why. It's because of hypoxia. So this is the most interesting experimentation. As you can see, we took off at 3 o'clock, and then it took approximately 1 hour to reach 6,000 meters by steps of 1,000 meters. At each step we were measuring the saturation. So this is the saturation. The minimum saturation we accepted was 88, but you should not accept less than 90 because you are a pilot. Here the guinea pigs were sitting in a plane and doing nothing. If you are a pilot, you need 90 absolutely minimum. So during the first part up to 2,500 meters, you see that the saturation is decreasing. And in order to keep 88%, we had to increase the setting to F5. Then the pilot recovered the saturation, and then the saturation went down again at 4,000 meters, and then we had to increase the setting to F10. And here you can see the flow of oxygen, the duration of a pulse in milliseconds. Good. So we continue the experimentation, and the saturation is going down again. So when we are at 5,000 meters, we had to go to F20. F20 is the maximum that the EDS can give. And F20 could ensure a good saturation at 6,000 meters practically all time. You can see saturation is 93%, 95%. We are at 6,000 meters, and then we stop the experimentation here. So first conclusion, if you are a little old, 69, you need to fly with F20 at 6,000 meters. And after this, you lose saturation because the EDS does not give any more oxygen. Another very important point, the piping in your glider has to be made in a certain way if it is a two-seater in tandem, because the cylinder is on the back, but the length of the pipes have to be exactly the same front and back. So you must go to the middle, put a capacity in the middle, and from that capacity go to each EDS in order to have exactly the same length of pipe. If you go the easy way, is go to the back seat and then from the back seat go to the front seat. What will happen? When you breathe from the back seat, the pilot in the front seat receives nothing. That's very dangerous. Anyway, you know that now. Another important point is the pressure in the cylinder. Unfortunately, the low-cost standard XCR regulator from Mountain High is a single-step pressure reducer. That means the output pressure is a function of the input pressure. As you see here, the output pressure is starting to decrease in a dangerous way after 80 bars in the cylinder. If you reach 45 bar in the cylinder, then it drops down drastically and it's dangerous. And Mountain High knows this, but didn't tell anybody. We discussed, now they agree on that, and they made a two-step pressure regulator that you have to pay a little bit more, but at least you can use up to 35 bar. So remember, when you reach 80 bars in your cylinder, come back home. You have less than 1 hour of safe operation. This is what I call degraded operation. This is prohibited, simply prohibited. So there is only one single rule against hypoxia. On the ground, before takeoff, cannula on your nose, EDS operating, a long life is not an option. Thank you for your attention, and thanks to Dr. Schaffner and the School of Winterthur.